Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm reviewing Kathmandu by Luke Richardson. So the reason I printed this up is because I read it on Kindle, and the last time I did a review of a Kindle book, I just held up my Kindle and a couple friends told me, hey Steven, you should have just printed up the title. So here it is, Kathmandu by Luke Richardson. I read it on Kindle, so I don't have a copy of the book. So there's the cover for you. This book was self-published. Luke Richardson is the author's name, and it's his real name. It's not a pen name. And I suppose I want to start by just commenting on the entire endeavor of self-publishing. I think it's pretty darn hard. First of all, you have to go through the same process that all authors do, which is you've got to sit in the chair, write one good sentence, and as Hemingway says, write another good sentence and another good sentence and another good sentence, and just keep doing that. So it's enough that you do that, and I suppose a traditional author might be relieved because once that's done, it's sent to his editors, and he or she is out of the process. They might be, if they're a really big deal, they might be asked to go on a book tour, these authors, but generally speaking, they can hand in a manuscript and then work on edits. But for a self-published author, that just means half of your job is completed. So you've actually completed the manuscript. Now you've got to go and shop this. So you've got to create ads on different platforms for people who might want to read your books. You potentially have to appear on podcasts or YouTube channels. You might need to write articles talking about different aspects of your book and use those as sales funnels. So this new other part of your job rears, and for some people this might be counter to the entire creative process. It's very businessy, and so they've had this wonderful time exercising all this creative talent to come up with a book, in this case a novel, and now they've got to do things that in some ways are creative, but in some ways are just the drudging through the drudgery part of the gig. And I respect that. I think that's what I admire about self-publishing is it requires a lot. Some people might sneer that it's not as good as traditional publishing, but I think one aspect is there's a lot of real work that goes into it, like a business, but also I think it puts you into closer contact with your readers. I have now read, more than 24 books by Mark Dawson, who's one of the most famous self-published authors, and he's a superstar on Amazon. And every time I've ever replied to an email of his or sent in a question about a character, I've gotten a response within a week. And while I'm not always in agreement with what Mark says or how he responds, I'm always impressed that despite having sold millions of books, and I'm sure having many people write to him, he takes the time to reply. And I think that's what's interesting about self-publishing. So the last part that I find difficult about self-publishing, and why I don't think I would ever be able to do this, is you have to create a series, in a sense, before you ever premiere. That is the prevailing wisdom. I'm not saying that every self-published author does this, but it seems the trend is you need to come with a trilogy or with a series or with a serial idea so that you can keep readers coming back. I found my friends who are in self-publishing or who know people who don't have a particular series, so let's say they write about one topic and then they write about another topic, that they can't carry readers from one topic to another. So if you write a book about geography, you can't necessarily carry those readers on to read, in this case, a travel thriller. They're different genres and different audiences. So the logic behind having a series is you have then created a machine for yourself. You now then just need to feed this machine. And we've seen this proven out with published people. So for example, name any one of them. I suppose Tom Clancy is the most famous that I've probably read, or less so necessarily in a serial form, but in the same genre, someone like Michael Crichton, who you know you're going to read in this particular genre, or John Grisham, you're going to read in this particular genre. So if you can't necessarily create a series around one character, then create a genre. And Robert Ludlum did this with The Bourne Identity. Now, interestingly, even though Jason Bourne is probably the most famous character that we might come across, people who've never read Robert Ludlum. And the only Robert Ludlum I've ever read was The Bourne Identity, which is significantly different from the film and what follows. And Ludlum actually went back to that character, and now there's an entire Bourne universe that the estate allowed other authors to come in. You could say, let's say, an expanded universe, a la what was formerly the Star Wars expanded universe, but let's not talk about that unhappy tale. So if you're able to build a series like Luke did here, then you can take readers on a journey with you. Not just with you as an author, but with the characters, and I think that's compelling. To follow my own path, my own customer journey, my own reader journey to Kathmandu, it actually starts in Koh Tao. So I first came across the author and Koh Tao, which is the title of the prequel to this, in a virtual Zoom chat with some fellow travelers. We were part of a traveling group, you could say networking group. And the discussion had just been around, well, what are people doing? And one of the people had said, oh, I'm working on another book. And, oh, great, an author, tell me more. And I had asked enough questions because I think I was just interested in the process, but he picked up on my interest and he said, hey, listen, if you're interested, no obligation, here's a code, a free code for one of my books. And it was Koh Tao. And it was a 2-hour, maybe 2.5-hour read. And he, the author, was reading it himself. So I followed the code, I went through, and I really enjoyed it. It was just a fun read. And it set up the themes that we're going to see in this series. Now, mind you, I think I bought Kathmandu almost as soon as it was finished, and I sent him a message and I said, your ending worked. I'm interested to see what happens next with these characters. And I don't want to spoil things, so I'm going to be vague in this review, but Kathmandu picks up where Koh Tao leaves off, with the first theme being there's a missing person. And missing persons are a rabbit hole that you could spend days on YouTube going down. I have definitely gone down that rabbit hole. I think missing persons are compelling for any number of reasons, not least of which there's a mystery involved. And people want to know why. I think that's why all these years later there's still this interest in MH370, because that's many missing persons combined in one, plus you have a missing airplane. So that's a key driver. There is a missing character element, both for the main character and then the line of work he gets into, which is helping people to find missing persons. There's also a travel element. Now, Luke wrote these books before the pandemic, so he didn't plan it, and he's not exploiting the fact that many of us can't really freely travel at the moment. But it was very well timed, you could say, this series of books, because it still preserves what I think people read some travel memoirs for, which is the chance to travel virtually to some place. And so Koh Tao was in Thailand. Kathmandu, as you know, is in Nepal. And so you have this opportunity to travel to these places in a way. The entire book isn't about that. You're going to get a sense of smells, tastes, people, customs, but it doesn't dominate the book. It's enough to couch and give you a universe for the book, which is helpful. And once you get used to that style, then you can be taken to other locations. And so that's what happens at the end of Kathmandu, is you get taken to Hong Kong, which I'm already reading Hong Kong. Why? Because again, at the ending of Kathmandu, I was pulled in to find out what's going on next. So that's part of the driver of this series, and I suppose any serial, is a really good hook. Oh no, I thought this was the end, but now there's something else. So there's a compelling end, and maybe it won't work on me later on, but I can say so far it certainly is working. Luke, you know what you're doing. The protagonist, so the missing persons angle, the travel angle. The third is the tics of the protagonist. So I think many people are used, and now with the popularization of the BBC version of Sherlock, the idea of tics of our detectives. Someone like Sherlock, Hercule Poirot, they have idiosyncrasies about them that we come to admire, appreciate, expect. But they would be weird if they were our neighbor or our friend or family member. In this particular case, there's an unexpected tick in one of the main characters in the fact that he has anxiety attacks. And you may or may not know someone who suffered from this. It is a phenomenon, I think, that has grown lately in the last 15, 20 years. And however you might feel about it, it's interesting because it allows you to see that someone who suffers from challenges like that can still step up and make the right decisions in a challenging circumstance. So it very much humanizes our character. Our character is not some billionaire playboy who dresses up in a giant metal or bat suit. This is just an ordinary guy who's hurting, who struggles with jobs, who struggles with women, and he's still trying to make a difference, and I think that that's really helpful. What Kathmandu started to allude to, and which is developing more now in Hong Kong, the sequel to Kathmandu, is romantic and familial relationships, and how our main character deals with that. And I have to say, it's impressive to see all of these threads woven together, because any one of these by themselves, I think, might be interesting to follow. But the fact that they're woven together, you have this missing person theme together with travel, together with a interesting protagonist, but who is an everyman, and romantic and family relationships, and potentially passing friends on the road relationships, that you then have a coherent narrative that not only sits well within this particular book, but has managed to span across the series, which I think is why I appreciate it, why I'm interested in, and so for why for the moment, at least, Luke has definitely got me interested in, and why I wanted to do this review for you. So I can recommend Kathmandu by Luke Richardson. I've got a link to an Amazon affiliate link where you can buy the book if you'd like, and I'll link to Kotaw as well, just so you can see that. This is one of the book reviews I do for my patrons on Patreon, so if you feel like becoming a member of that community, I will also do an exclusive once a month that's just for them, which then comes out here on YouTube some months later. So if you're interested, please feel free to subscribe so you can get more of these reviews. Please like, comment, agree, disagree, or if you've read Kathmandu yourself, I'd love to hear your own perspectives. But for now, that's all I have. Enjoy, and I'll see you on the next video.